Hello everyone, welcome to the promised vlog. Not quite the promised land, let me adjust the camera slightly. But yeah, I said I was going to do this. It wouldn't be a video by me without some technical cock-up, now would it? But I said I was going to do this, basically announcing the future of my eFed, as well as a couple of other things. It's basically a part 2 to the vlog I put out near the start of the year, saying what I wanted to do for my YouTube channel. So, but it's going to be more focused on the eFed, but there will be tiny bits of other things. So let's start with what my plan is for the eFed. So basically it's going to be the same plan as I had last year when 2K22 was coming out. I am going to switch to 2K23 when I get the game on my birthday or around my birthday. Well, I'm not going to switch immediately. I am going to start working on my cores for that point and probably start downloading others. But the full shift to 2K23 as an eFed will be near the start of May, because we want to end it. Well, I want to end it ideally with War of Attrition, because that's one of my biggest shows. It's one of my main 6 crossover pay-per-views. Easily my favourite one in terms of format. It's just always great. So to send it off in a way and then to head into the next generational game, I think really works. But there are some things I thought I'd go over for it as well, and things that will definitely help very, very soon, as well as crossing into 2K23. So, I've been experimenting a little bit with 3 match types that I devised as part of the eFed. One is the over-the-top Rumble, which is basically just a Royal Rumble. There's nothing fancy about it, but that's the first thing I'll talk about. Secondly is the Locked and Loaded match, which is basically a Hell in a Cell death match, or it won't be any longer. Spoilers for a moment. And lastly is the Harsh Environment Chamber, which is just basically an elimination chamber. So let's start with the Locked and Loaded match, because that was the first one I started working on. So basically the entire point of the Locked and Loaded match was that it was a gimmick match for the gimmick pay-per-view Locked and Loaded, which is just Hell in a Cell. It's an AVW specific pay-per-view. It used to be Crossbrand before I brought in it used to be just PBW before I brought in AVW. But the entire point and the main reason I made a Locked and Loaded match in the first place for Season 2 was to cap off the feud, continue the feud between Christian Morales and John Spartacus. And that match was great. It was a knockout-only death match inside a cage. It was absolutely fucking phenomenal. And each one since has just been obligatory, and it felt way too much like WWE's actual Hell in a Cell pay-per-views at times, except for a couple of exceptions. For example, Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes from last year, still my pro wrestling match of 2022. Really fucking good match. But I was experimenting with it a little bit. And the experiment I was doing was, it is still Hell in a Cell, but instead of a traditional death match, it is 2 out of 3 submissions. And I've run so many matches through this format, and each of them have just been brutal as fuck to watch. Easily the most brutal matches I think I've ever put on. And I think it helps to keep submissions only, because if I had pinfalls, it just wouldn't feel as deathmatchy, I guess, but keeping it to submissions, and only submissions, and it's not going to be knockouts either, I think was a really smart idea. Every match I've run with it has, even some of the slightly duller ones have had some really great moments to them, so I'm very excited to announce that that's going to be the new format for Locked and Loaded, and it's going to be really fucking good. I mean, I was surprised that my wrestler Conor Gates, because I put him in a couple of matches for it as well, he had some bangers in it too, so yeah, it works for me. Jake from the future, joined by my cat here as I'm editing the video that you're currently watching. I forgot to mention that tag team Locked and Loaded matches will still be around as well, because they were really, really good in Season 4 when I first brought those in. Basically, they're just going to be 2 out of 3 falls, but Hell in a Cell for the AVW Tag Team Championships, basically depending on what team is feuding over them. So I thought I'd throw that in really quickly. Okay, back to the rest of the video. The next match type is the Over-the-Top Rumble, which is probably the one I've worked the most on. Which is surprising because it's the longest match. So essentially, the reason I decided to work around it was because the Over the Top 3 pay-per-view had a really good Rumble, but the entrances were too short. It was 30 seconds in between. And the one I had for Over the Top 4 was a bad Rumble, because the entrances were too long. It took way too much time in between the entrance. I think it was 2.5 minutes or something, so I decided to finagle with that a little bit, and I made it 90 seconds. And each Rumble I've put on with that formatting has pretty much worked. It does still have the weird problem that 2K22 has, which is if there is just 2 men in a ring and one of them gets eliminated, the other person has to then come out immediately. And I don't like that. I'd rather give it the 90-second wait. But you know what? The current format and how it works with that, it works really well. The Rumble is still going to be specific to the men because the women have the Golden Path tournament. That's not going to change at all. It's still going to be pretty much the same, because I love how that works on its own, so that doesn't need any messing around with. And the last thing is really the Harsh Environment Chamber match. nothing really new to add. I think it's just going to be like 2 minutes in between entrants. I did finagle a couple of times as the one I've worked the least on, but I did get a couple of concepts and ideas done over the weekend. Not just in my head, actually like put them to gameplay to see how they'd work, and they do look pretty good. I am going to work with it a couple more times over this week, but I think like the 2 minutes in between entrants is going to be really good. It might serve it quite well. And that's pretty much it for the EFED stuff. Oh, except for all the super duper important shit. So, with the Switch going from 2K22 to 2K23, I'm going to need a lot of fucking help because I'm lazy. So, things I require, and reminding you of the rules, essentially, you're only allowed 3 created wrestlers per person. If you have a tag team, that counts as 2 wrestlers, so be wise about your decisions, right? I also need new title belts made, I will need new arena logos and new weekly arenas made, but don't worry about that. Well, okay, do worry about that because you have to do it, and I'm not nearly skilled enough to do it, unless I could just use the arenas I currently have. I know, that'll feel a bit lazy. I want, like, some small shifts, but not any like super massive ones. And there's also pay-per-views as well. They're going to be running the same. I just need people to make logos for pay-per-views, and I'll make the arenas. That is one that falls on me, and it's something I quite enjoy doing. So I'll, that's no worry either. And I'm trying to think of other things I might have missed out. I think that's about it. I've covered the arenas, the pay-per-views, covered the match types, covered how many wrestlers you're allowed per thing. Yeah, no, and everything else is in the rules. Well, I thought there'd be more to that, but if I come up with something, I'm sure I'll go, oh, and then suddenly remember. Oh, and the other thing is also my anniversary video. Now, I do have plenty of questions, but I would like a fair chunk more. I don't know exactly how many I have, but I think it's just a shade under 20. I do want to see if I can stretch it to at least 30. Right, I think that's a reasonable amount of questions. The max I am allowing is still 50. Maybe under that. If I do go over, I'll just eliminate some questions that might seem too similar. DM me the questions on whatever you're using to watch this, and I will try and get them answered in a video. And once again, your identity will remain anonymous because, again, me too lazy to really put names on. So, that'll about do it. There's not really many other plans. Not really a lot of other shit has changed. I will see you all in video form likely Thursday for another episode of Music of the Week. So that'll be it. As always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye bye.